one of the things that we're really proud about the summit is that people come in from all over the globe, all over the country, to discuss what is the latest trend and evidence around the diffusion of digital into the ecosystem. And so, obviously, digital health and digital technologies and healthcare delivery and life sciences are more than just a national issue; it's a global issue. And so, to bring us some perspective of what's happening in Europe and around other parts of the world is a partner with Keles, which is a venture fund in Europe. And we're going to hear more about what he's seeing and the different opportunities he's seeing for our health systems and our clinics and our patients to utilize some of these digital technologies from other countries that are seeing good growth there in the US system. So David, if you can start by just introducing yourself and your background.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm David Buller. I'm, as Stan was saying, I'm the partner of a fund called Keles in Europe. So my background is I was the founder of a health tech company called Advantech Healthcare, where we're doing robotic drug dispensing systems and inventory management systems in hospitals, tracking all the medicines and supplies. It was bought by a company down in Mountain View, California called Omnicell. Then I spent 2 years in San Francisco getting into a new life of venture capital investing and startup investing. Got involved in a lot of venture investment groups, was a mentor and entrepreneur in residence at 500 Global. Then fled San Francisco due to COVID and was back in the UK. Started a digital health fund called the Ascension Life Fund. It's a seed stage fund focused on digital health investments and tech bio. Got a portfolio of 17 companies there, one of which just acquired by Eli Lilly. So it was a company in clinical trials. And then we were kind of looking at what to do with a fund two, and really wanted to build a bigger fund and also needed to where the value was really much more a growth stage and seed stage is quite a big. I mean, maybe this will come up in the conversation. Is that there's a big funding gap for digital health companies in Europe, and this is really where the sweet spot was and the value, and also to be investing across the whole of Europe rather than just the UK. So it kind of takes us up to where we are today.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And again, if there's any questions in the audience, feel free to raise your hand, or David will also be outside the room afterwards. But I think really what people here are thirsting for are solutions that have evidence of technical efficacy, economic efficacy, experiential efficacy, integrational, does it integrate and implement well, and then obviously clinical, that's the most important. So what kind of digital technologies have you seen, digital technology companies have you seen in Europe that are really taking the continent by storm, whether it's in the UK or whether it's in Paris or France or in Germany? Have you seen some, or can you mention some to the audience here that they can take notes on, where you've seen some nice scaling, some nice diffusion?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think first is the point about the distribution of digital health companies across Europe. I mean, it's quite. I mean, there's European Union 27, and then within sort of continental Europe and the UK, even post Brexit, but we won't mention that. But in terms of the deal distribution, I mean, frankly, in the UK and France, that probably accounts for 50 to 60% of the deals. So they really are the kind of core centres of activity in digital health. And then if we add to that kind of the Nordics and Benelux and Germany, I mean, we did a big kind of market analysis of digital health companies, and between those areas there's like 75-80% of all companies. So it is quite focused on a few centres of excellence. And then if we look within that, I think that there is actually sort of quite a focus of our fund here. It's a lot in AI drug discovery, in clinical trials, digitized and decentralized clinical trials, and then also in AI imaging and diagnostics. So if we just dig into some of those, in AI imaging, for example, I mean, there's a company called Blima in France that are doing analysis on images within hospital, X-ray and beyond. So they've got considerable traction there, and just done a Series B investment. We invested in a company called my previous fund, actually, a company called Curate, that is actually doing AI analysis on lung images, and they're progressing really well. I think one of the key points about the AI imaging is very much about the data it is trained on and the data that you have access to. So I think that's one of the key things that separates one company from another, and their ability to specialize and succeed in what they're doing for any particular disease or indication.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think one of the things that we've seen here in the US and everyone's taking note of is digital therapeutics, where people are wearing either a goggle or they're wearing a wristwatch or they're wearing a ring or something that can track either blood pressure or arrhythmias or something like this. The Zio is obviously a big one here in the US, or either checking arrhythmias just on a phone or wearing a patch across the chest. What kind of digital therapeutics are you seeing scale in Europe, or is that something that's having trouble getting off the ground in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to say to that is trying to define digital therapeutics a little bit, because there are the ones that are actually regulatory authorized as a therapeutic and being prescribed, which I'm not quite sure is quite a thing here yet. But I mean, for example, you've got DiGA in Germany, which is the act to allow these digital therapeutics to be reimbursed by the system, so you can actually prescribe a digital therapeutic. I think one of the challenges we're seeing there is that is how replicable that is across borders. So whether it's across Europe, I mean, one of the challenges even with the European Union is that there are different healthcare systems, different reimbursement, completely different models in every country. So even though you've got the EU 27 and a single currency, etc., to replicate something like a digital therapeutic where it is constrained by regulatory requirements is quite difficult to move, replicate in one country, or at least you have to almost kind of start again, if you like, for new regulatory approval. But I think on the other side of it, it's a bit more in the kind of terms of patient monitoring, some of those other kind of might fall under sort of therapeutics and remote patient monitoring and such like. I think what we're finding there is how do they actually embed into the care pathway for a patient, because there's so much technology. And I think if we look at some of the trends, is sort of over the last sort of 3 or starting sort of 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe a little bit more, there was all this excitement of, wow, we can track this and that was never actually possible before. Now I think the challenge is there is an absolute abundance of devices that are getting better and better, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be about the individual device. It's how it embeds itself into the provider and the care pathway, and how can they actually action that data. I think that in itself is probably a huge challenge, because how do you move from a system where the clinician sees the patient once every 3 months or something like that to going, now you have live information tracking things going on with this patient down to the second, but then how do you monitor and intervene with that? And that's one of the challenges ahead, I think, is how do people actually manage that information and do something with it.
Yeah. And your mic just fell off if you just put that mic on your coat there, your shirt. And I think just to wrap up, we've got about a minute left. If you could give the audience an idea, where do you think digital is heading? Where are the opportunities? Where are the unsolved pain points like Lee Shapiro discussed on Monday here? Where do you think there is opportunity for digital health entrepreneurs and people like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of them is that point that I was making there is how, yes, individual devices, but who's going to address the challenge? How will the challenge be addressed of embedding it into a healthcare's provider's workflow and into the kind of the care pathway of the patients, and really making that possible? And there's like a company in the UK, Humor, that is doing the kind of the virtual wards and virtual hospital room, everything, and they've already got it embedded into the NHS system. So that's one example. Other trends, I think, AI imaging is huge, and I think that there's 2 sides to that. One is the ability to almost kind of automate what is being done at the moment, and then the other is to be able to find biomarkers or detect disease that was never possible with the human eye. So that's a super exciting trend, because I think that's actually going to dramatically change outcomes for patients and our ability to pick up on disease and treat patients earlier.
It's fantastic. Well, thank you for flying here from London. Good to see you.
Well, thank you very much.
Pleasure.